Jack had always wanted to buy a house, but he never imagined he'd find one quite like this. The house was old, but it had a charm to it. It was located on the outskirts of a small town, far from the noise of the city, and had a large yard with a few trees scattered here and there. The price was right, and after looking at several homes, Jack decided this would be the one. The house had a unique feel to it. It wasn't brand new or modern, but it was sturdy. The wooden floors creaked as Jack walked through the hallways, and there was something comforting about the old, worn-out furniture left behind by the previous owners. Jack liked it. He could already picture himself spending quiet evenings there, reading or cooking dinner. But there was one thing about the house that seemed odd from the start: a locked door in the basement. It wasn't something that immediately caught his attention, but it was always there, standing at the back of his mind. The door was unlike the rest in the house, older, with a strange, intricate design carved into the wood. Jack had tried to open it once, but the key seemed lost. It didn't seem important at first. He was too busy settling in, unpacking boxes, and getting used to his new life. Weeks passed, and Jack slowly became accustomed to the rhythms of his new home. But one evening, while exploring the basement to check the water heater, he found himself staring at the door again. Something about it pulled him in. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was boredom, but Jack decided it was time to open it. He grabbed a crowbar from the tool chest and carefully pried the door open. It creaked loudly, and Jack winced, half expecting something to fall on top of him. But nothing happened. The air inside the room was cold, and the dim light from the basement stairs barely reached the far corner. There, sitting in the shadows, was a figure. At first, Jack thought it was a trick of the light, perhaps an old coat or a pile of boxes, but as his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he saw that it was definitely a person. A woman, sitting cross-legged on the floor, her head resting on her knees. She appeared to be sleeping, but there was something strange about her. She was pale, almost glowing in the dim light, and her clothes were unlike anything Jack had ever seen before. He stepped forward cautiously. "Hello," he called softly, not wanting to startle her. The woman didn't respond. Jack was about to turn and leave when she suddenly lifted her head. Her eyes opened slowly, revealing a deep, strange shade of blue, unlike anything he had seen before. They seemed to shimmer in the dim light, almost as if they were glowing. Jack froze, not sure what to make of the situation. Who are you?" Jack stammered, his voice low and careful. The woman blinked as if trying to understand his words. She opened her mouth but then closed it again, as if lost for words. For a moment, the two of them just stared at each other, neither speaking. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but clear. "I am Lyra," she said, and her words sent a strange chill down Jack's spine. "I've been waiting for you." Jack's mind raced. "Waiting for me? What do you mean? How did you get in here?" Lyra blinked again, her eyes wide as though confused by the question. She took a deep breath, almost as if trying to remember something. "I've been here for so long. I didn't know where I was until now. You are the one." Jack stepped back a little. "I don't understand. Who are you? What do you mean, the one?" Lyra looked at him intently, her expression softening. "You don't remember me, do you?" she whispered. "But I remember you. I'm your wife. I've been waiting for you, Jack." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "My wife," he repeated, shaking his head in disbelief. "I think you've got the wrong person. I don't know you." Lyra stood up slowly, her movements graceful and unhurried, as if she had all the time in the world. She stepped toward him, her eyes never leaving his. "You may not remember now, but you will. I am your wife. You are the one who can help me." Jack's mind was spinning. "This doesn't make sense. You're saying you're my wife. But how is that even possible? I just moved into this house. I don't know you." Lyra took a step closer, her voice calm but full of a quiet certainty. "You will soon. You must." Jack took a step back, his hands shaking slightly. He felt like he was in some kind of strange dream. None of this felt real. How could this woman be his wife? And how could she be living in his basement for? How long? Please, Lyra continued softly. I'm not from here. I need your help. Jack's mind was racing. But deep down, a part of him felt a strange connection to her. Something he couldn't explain. He wasn't sure if it was fear, confusion, or something else entirely, but something about Lyra felt familiar, almost like he should know her. Help you with what? Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra smiled softly, as if she knew he was beginning to understand, even though he wasn't fully aware of it yet. You'll see, Jack, you'll see. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. As he stood in the basement, staring at the woman who claimed to be his wife, his mind was racing. Was this some kind of prank? Was he dreaming? There was no way this could be real. He had only just moved into this house a few weeks ago. How could someone have been living in the basement, waiting for him? Lyra stood still, watching him carefully, her blue eyes never leaving his face. She looked calm, but there was something intense in her gaze, as if she was waiting for Jack to understand something important. Please, she said again, her voice soft but full of emotion. I know this is hard to believe, but I'm not from here. I didn't come to Earth by choice. I came because I had to. And now I need you to help me. Jack took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. He had to know more. Help you with what? What do you mean you're not from here? You look human. How is that even possible? Lyra glanced down at her clothes, then back at Jack. I understand why you're confused. I look human, but I'm not. I'm from another world, another galaxy. My name is Lyra, and I've been here for a very long time, trapped in this place. Jack felt a wave of disbelief wash over him. An alien. From another galaxy. It sounded insane, but there was something about Lyra that made him want to believe her. Her eyes, her voice, even the way she moved. It all felt so real. Wait, Jack said, his mind trying to make sense of it all. You've been here for a long time. How long? Lyra closed her eyes briefly, as if recalling painful memories. I crashed here many years ago. My ship, it was damaged, and I ended up here by mistake. I was far from my people, and I didn't know how to get back home. The crash caused me to lose my memories, and for a long time, I was just lost. Jack was stunned. But why didn't you just leave? Why stay here in the basement all this time? Lyra sighed softly. I couldn't leave. My people are far away, and I have to wait for something important to happen. Something that only you can help with. Jack felt his confusion deepening. What do you mean, something important? Why me? I don't know all the answers, Lyra admitted. But I know this. I was meant to find you. There is a connection between us, Jack. I've been waiting for you. And now that you're here, things can finally begin to change. Jack shook his head. I still don't get it. You're saying I'm supposed to help you fix your ship or something? Lyra nodded slowly. Yes and no. The ship isn't the most important thing anymore. I've tried to fix it, but it's beyond repair without help from someone who has the right qualities. Your qualities, Jack. Jack raised an eyebrow. My qualities? What are you talking about? Lyra stepped closer to him, her gaze steady and full of something Jack couldn't quite understand. You have something special about you. I can feel it. You're not just a normal human. You're different, Jack. Your mind, your abilities, they're stronger than you know. Stronger than any of the people on Earth realize. Jack took a step back, his heart pounding in his chest. What do you mean, stronger? I'm just a regular guy. I don't know anything about aliens or spaceships or... You do, Lyra interrupted gently. You just don't remember yet. Jack blinked, feeling his confusion growing. Remember what? Lyra looked down for a moment, as if searching for the right words. There is a history between humans and my people. a history that has been forgotten. For a long time, Earth has been isolated from the rest of the universe. Your people have no idea what's out there, what's been happening. Are you saying Earth's been hidden from other planets? Jack asked, trying to wrap his mind around what she was saying. Lyra nodded. Yes, the universe is vast, and for many years, Earth has been kept away from the rest of the galaxy. But now that you're here, the connection between Earth and my world can be restored. And it all starts with you. Jack was quiet for a moment, his mind trying to process everything. But why me? He repeated. Why did you wait for me? I can't explain it fully yet, Lyra said softly. But you are the key, Jack. You are the one who can help me return home. You're the one who can help Earth join the galaxy. Jack felt his pulse quicken. You want me to help you go home, to another galaxy. How am I supposed to do that? Lyra smiled softly, her eyes filled with hope. I believe you can, Jack. Together, we can do it. But first, we need to unlock something. Something important that's hidden. Something that only you can help me find. Jack was silent for a moment, his mind still spinning. I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't think you're lying. I'm not, Lyra said, her voice firm but gentle. And once you understand, you'll see what I mean. But for now, just trust me. Jack hesitated, then nodded. He didn't know what he was getting into, but he felt something he couldn't explain, a strange pull to help her. Okay, he said quietly. I'll help, but we have to take this one step at a time. Lyra's smile grew wider, and for the first time since meeting her, Jack felt a sense of calm settle over him. Whatever this was, whatever was about to happen, he was in this now. No turning back. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind for Jack. He couldn't stop thinking about what Lyra had said, and he found himself walking around the house in a daze. The quiet suburban streets outside his window seemed so normal, so peaceful. But everything had changed. His whole life had shifted in just a few short days. Lyra was still in the basement, and every time Jack saw her, it was as if she held a piece of the puzzle he didn't yet understand. The connection she spoke of, he could almost feel it, like a spark just out of reach. But what did she mean by him being the key? And why was his mind so drawn to her words, even when he was unsure if he should trust her? That morning, Jack made his way down to the basement again. He had brought coffee, trying to be normal, but everything felt off. Lyra stood near the far corner of the room, where a strange glowing device lay on the floor. It looked like nothing he had ever seen, smooth, metallic, and almost alive with light, like it had a pulse of its own. Hey, Jack said, setting the coffee down on the table. What's that? Is that your ship's power source? Lyra glanced up at him with a look of quiet understanding. It's part of the answer, she replied softly. It's a piece of my past, something that can unlock the memories I've lost. And maybe it can unlock your potential too. Jack frowned. My potential? How is this thing supposed to help me? Lyra's gaze softened as she stepped closer to the device. It's not just a power source. It's a relic, a key to something much bigger. My people, they had technology that far surpassed anything on Earth, but they left many secrets behind. This device is one of them. Jack leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. And you think it can help me remember what you say is hidden inside me? Lyra nodded slowly, her expression serious. Yes, I believe it can. You're not like other humans, Jack. You've always had the potential. It's just been dormant, waiting to be unlocked. He rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. This is too much. I don't know if I'm ready for all this. You say I'm special, but I'm just me. Lyra gave him a small, reassuring smile. I understand how you feel. I wasn't ready when I first arrived on Earth either. But now, it's time. We have to find what's hidden, or everything we've worked for will be lost. Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. All right, Let's try this. What do I have to do? Lyra's eyes sparkled with relief. All you have to do is touch it. Let the device connect with you. Trust that your mind is capable of understanding what's hidden inside. Jack hesitated but nodded. He walked over to the device, his fingers brushing against its cool surface. A strange tingling sensation ran up his arm, and he quickly pulled back, surprised by how real the sensation was. What was that? Jack asked, his heart racing. Lyra's expression was one of awe. You felt it, didn't you? That's the first step. The device has connected with you. Now it can begin to unlock the memories buried deep inside you. Jack stared at the device, his mind racing. Memories. I don't even remember anything about this. How do I know if this is real? Lyra stepped closer, her voice soft but steady. I know this is hard to believe, Jack. But trust me, this is real. The truth is, your mind is more powerful than you realize. There's a part of you that is connected to my people, to my world. That's why I was brought here, why I was meant to find you. You are part of a much bigger story, a story that has been forgotten by Earth. Jack sat down on a nearby chair, trying to process everything she had said. This is insane. I'm just a regular guy. I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't have any connection to aliens or whatever this is. Lyra knelt in front of him, her eyes filled with sincerity. You do, Jack. You were always meant to help me, to help both of us. The room fell silent for a moment. Jack's mind was a whirl of questions, but one thing stood out above all. There was no mistaking the trust in Lyra's eyes. No matter how unbelievable it seemed, she wasn't lying to him. Slowly, Jack stood up and walked back to the device. His hand hovered over it, his fingers shaking slightly. He wasn't sure what he was about to do, but deep inside, something urged him forward. With a deep breath, Jack placed his hand firmly on the device. Immediately, a surge of energy filled him, and his vision blurred. He gasped, feeling as though his very mind was being stretched, opened up to something far beyond his understanding. Suddenly, images flashed in his mind. Strange worlds, alien technology, and faces he didn't recognize. They were so vivid, so real, as if they had always been there, waiting to be unlocked. He saw the image of a ship, Lyra's ship, and he knew, in that moment, that he had seen it before. But it was more than just a ship. It was the key to everything. The connection was brief but powerful, and when it faded, Jack staggered back, his breath coming in short gasps. His head spun, and he blinked, trying to clear the fog in his mind. Lyra stood quietly beside him, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. You felt it, didn't you? That was just a glimpse. There's more, Jack. You're beginning to understand now. Jack looked at her, his heart racing. I don't know what I saw, but it felt real. Like it was part of me. Lyra smiled softly. It is. And now, we can move forward. The days after Jack's encounter with the strange device were a blur. His mind was still reeling from the images he had seen, and every time he closed his eyes, the flashes of alien worlds and strange faces returned. It felt like the memories were just out of reach, like a story he had almost remembered but couldn't quite put together. Lyra had been patient, giving him space to process, but the silence between them grew heavy. Jack felt like something important was slipping through his fingers, and every second seemed to stretch longer than the last. His connection to the device was real. He knew that much. But what did it all mean? One evening, as Jack sat on the porch, looking out over the quiet street, he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The world around him seemed so normal, so unaffected by what he was experiencing, and yet he knew that he was a part of something far bigger. Lyra appeared at the door, her presence calming, yet full of unspoken urgency. We need to continue, she said simply. Jack looked up at her, his eyes tired but determined. I know. I've been thinking about what happened with the device. I felt something. It's like there's a part of me that remembers all of this, but I can't make sense of it. What do you want me to do next? Lyra's gaze softened, and she stepped out onto the porch. The device was just the beginning. What you experienced was a glimpse, a connection to the past. But there is more to it. I need you to trust me. We have to find the rest of the answers before it's too late. Jack stood up, his heart racing at the gravity in her voice. What's going to happen if we don't find these answers? What's at stake here, Lyra? She hesitated, then took a deep breath. Everything. If we don't unlock the full memory, if we don't understand what is buried deep inside you, there are forces at play that will destroy everything we've worked for. The device is only a small part of a much bigger puzzle, a puzzle that only you can help solve. Jack swallowed hard. The weight of her words settled over him like a heavy cloak, but the urgency in her eyes pushed him forward. I'll help. Tell me what to do. Lyra smiled softly, her expression a mix of gratitude and determination. We need to go back to the basement. The device wasn't meant to be used alone. There is another part, another relic. The two of them together will unlock the final piece of the puzzle, but we'll need to activate it in the right way. They made their way downstairs to the basement, where the strange device still sat in its corner. The room had a strange energy about it, as if something unseen was waiting for them to take action. Lyra knelt beside the device, her fingers brushing over the cool metal. The other part is hidden, Jack, and we don't have much time. There are those who are still looking for it, who want to use it for their own purposes. If we don't unlock it first, they'll destroy everything. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. Who are these people? What do they want with it? They're from my world, Lyra replied, her voice steady, but filled with a hint of sadness. They know what the device can do, and they'll stop at nothing to control it. If they get their hands on the second relic, it will be too late for anyone. Jack nodded, his mind already working through the possibilities. Okay, let's do this. Lyra moved aside, giving him room to approach the device. Jack took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the situation settle over him. He had no idea what he was about to unlock, but he had come this far. There was no turning back now. He reached down and placed his hand on the device again. This time, the sensation was different, stronger, more intense. He felt a pulse of energy flow through him, and the room around him seemed to shift. The walls blurred, the air thick with the feeling of something ancient, something powerful. And then, as if a switch had been flipped, the visions came again. They were clearer this time. He could see them, as if they were his own memories. Alien cities, vast landscapes of strange beauty, and faces of people who seemed so familiar. But they weren't human. They were beings from another world, Lyra's world. Suddenly, a new face appeared, one Jack recognized. It was his own. He gasped, pulling his hand back from the device as the images faded. His heart raced, and he couldn't catch his breath. I saw. Me. But how? What does it mean? Lyra stood behind him, her expression a mixture of awe and sorrow. You've seen it now, Jack. The truth. You are a part of my world. You were sent here for a reason, to keep the balance, to protect us from what is coming. Jack's mind spun as he processed the weight of her words. I don't understand. If I'm from your world, then why don't I remember any of this? Why am I here? Lyra stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. You were sent here to protect Earth, but something went wrong. Your memories were erased, hidden deep inside you. You've been living here, on Earth, without knowing your true purpose. But now, the time has come for you to remember. Jack's head was spinning, but one thing was clear. He wasn't just a regular guy. He was part of something much bigger. And Lyra, she was here for a reason. The truth was just beginning to unfold. The days that followed were a blur of strange new discoveries. Jack couldn't stop thinking about the visions he had seen, and the truth Lyra had revealed to him. He was more than just an ordinary man. He had a past tied to her world, a world that was slowly falling apart. The more he thought about it, the more he realized how little he knew about himself and how much was at stake. Lyra had explained that the device was only the beginning, but Jack's mind was struggling to catch up. He had seen his own face in the visions, and the shock of it all was still fresh. He wasn't just someone on Earth, he was from another world, sent to protect it. But why was he here? And why had he forgotten everything? Jack sat at the kitchen table, going over the strange information in his head. His thoughts were interrupted by the soft sound of footsteps. Lyra entered the room, her expression serious but calm. She held something in her hand, a small metallic object that seemed to glow faintly. Jack looked up at her, his heart racing. "What's that?" "This," Lyra said, placing the object in front of him, "is the final key. The second relic. Together with the device, it will unlock the rest of your memory. It will reveal everything you need to know, everything about who you are, and why you were sent here." Jack's hands trembled as he reached for the relic. It was cold to the touch, and the strange energy radiating from it seemed to pulse with a life of its own. He could feel it, deep in his bones. This was it, the piece of the puzzle that had been missing for so long. He looked up at Lyra, his voice filled with uncertainty. "Are you sure I'm ready for this? What if it's too much? What if I can't handle it?" Lyra smiled, her eyes soft with understanding. "You're stronger than you know, Jack. This is your purpose. You've been carrying it with you all this time, even if you didn't remember. It's time for you to reclaim it." Jack nodded slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't sure if he was ready for everything this moment would bring, but he knew he couldn't turn back now. With a deep breath, he pressed the relic into the device, holding his breath as the two objects connected. The moment the relic clicked into place, everything changed. The air around them crackled with energy. The room seemed to vibrate, and Jack's vision blurred as the energy from the device coursed through him. His body felt like it was being pulled apart, then put back together, as memories flooded his mind in a rush. He saw himself as he truly was, no longer just a man on Earth, but someone tied to another world. The images came fast and furious. Cities on a distant planet, strange creatures, battles fought long ago, and faces he recognized as his own, only they were different. In one vision, he saw himself standing next to Lyra, her eyes filled with warmth and sadness. They were in a place that looked like a forgotten temple, surrounded by ruins and the echoes of a lost civilization. Jack gasped, his hands gripping the edge of the table as the flood of memories grew overwhelming. He saw it all. The mission he had been given, the reason he had been sent to Earth. It wasn't just to protect her world, it was to protect Earth as well. His two worlds were connected, and his purpose was to keep them both from falling apart. But then, something darker appeared in his visions. Shadowy figures, cloaked in darkness, watching him from the distance. He could feel their presence, a cold, menacing energy. They were after him, after the relics, after everything. The vision faded, and Jack was left gasping for air, his mind reeling from the intensity of what he had just experienced. He looked up at Lyra, his eyes wide with disbelief. I remember everything," Jack said, his voice shaky. "I was sent here to protect both worlds. But there are others, dangerous ones. They want to destroy everything." Lyra stepped forward, her expression grave. "Yes, they're called the Shattered Ones. They've been hunting you ever since you arrived. They know what you carry, the power to save both our worlds. And they will stop at nothing to take it from you." Jack stood up, his fists clenched. "How do we stop them? I can't just sit back and let them destroy everything." Lyra's eyes met his, filled with determination. "We have to act quickly. There's no time to waste. The Shattered Ones are already gathering their forces. They know we're close to unlocking the final piece of the puzzle. But we have one advantage, this knowledge. You know the truth now, Jack, and together, we can use it to stop them." Jack felt a surge of determination rise in him. The memories, the visions, they had all led him to this moment. He wasn't just a man who had stumbled into something strange. He was the key to saving two worlds. And now that he remembered, he wasn't going to back down. "I'm ready," Jack said, his voice steady. "Let's end this, once and for all." Lyra smiled, a look of pride on her face. "I knew you would be." Together, they turned toward the door. Outside, the world was still calm, unaware of the danger lurking just beneath the surface. But for Jack and Lyra, the time to fight had come. The fate of both worlds rested on their shoulders, and they would face it together. Jack and Lyra stood at the edge of the small town, the sun setting behind them, casting long shadows across the road. The world seemed peaceful, quiet, but Jack knew better. They didn't have much time before the Shattered Ones would make their move. The memories from the relic were still fresh in his mind. Visions of an ancient war, a battle that had once torn apart their worlds. The Shattered Ones were the remnants of that war, bent on bringing chaos back to the universe. "We can't let them succeed," Jack said, his voice low and serious. "They want the relics, but it's not just about the relics. They want control over everything." Lyra nodded. "They want to break the balance. If they succeed, not only will our worlds fall into darkness, but the entire galaxy will crumble. It's a war for the fate of everything." Jack took a deep breath. "And we're the only ones who can stop them." "Yes," Lyra replied. "You and I, together." The weight of those words hung heavy in the air. Jack had always felt like an ordinary man, just trying to get by in his life. But now it was clear. He wasn't just anyone. He had been chosen for this moment. He had a responsibility that stretched across worlds, across time, and he couldn't ignore it anymore. "We need allies," Jack said, his mind working quickly. "We can't do this alone." Lyra raised an eyebrow, a small, knowing smile on her face. "You'd be surprised how many are willing to fight for something bigger than themselves." Jack glanced at her, surprised by her confidence. "Who else knows about this war? Who else can help us?" "There are others," she said. "Not many, but those who know of the Shattered One's return have been waiting. We'll start with those who still remember what happened, the ones who fought beside us long ago." Jack felt a wave of uncertainty wash over him. He was just starting to understand his purpose, and now they were going to find old warriors, people who had fought in battles long before his time. Would they even trust him? Would they believe him? "I'm not sure they'll take us seriously," Jack said. "What if they don't believe me?" "They will," Lyra said firmly, "because you're not just a man. You're the one who carries the knowledge of both worlds, the one who can end this war." Jack looked into Lyra's eyes and saw the truth in them. He had always trusted her, even before he understood why. She believed in him, and that gave him the strength he needed. "All right," Jack said, his resolve hardening. "Let's go. We don't have time to waste." With a sense of urgency, they set off to find their first ally. An old warrior, one of Lyra's closest friends from the past. She had told Jack the story of this warrior, someone who had fought beside her when their world was still whole, someone who had seen the devastation the Shattered Ones could bring. The warrior had gone into hiding after the last war, but Lyra knew where to find him. It didn't take long to reach the small, secluded cabin deep in the woods. The place was quiet, almost eerie, as if it had been untouched for years. Lyra knocked on the door, and it creaked open slowly. A tall man appeared, his face weathered and worn by time, but his eyes still sharp. He looked them both up and down, his gaze lingering on Jack for a moment longer than necessary. "Lyra," the man said, his voice rough but warm. "I didn't expect to see you again." "And who's this?" "This is Jack," Lyra said. "He's the one I've been telling you about. He's the key to ending the war." The man's eyes narrowed as he studied Jack. "The key, huh? That's a big claim." "I know it's hard to believe," Jack said, stepping forward, "but I'm not just anyone. I've seen it, visions of the past, of battles fought long ago. I'm the one who can stop the Shattered Ones." The warrior was silent for a long moment, and Jack could feel the weight of his stare. Finally, the man nodded. "I've seen the darkness they bring," he said quietly. "I've fought them before. If what you say is true, then I'll stand by you." Jack let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. One down, many more to go. The warrior stepped aside to let them in, and the door closed behind them with a heavy thud. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and old maps of distant planets covered the walls. The warrior, whose name was Corvin, set down a large mug of tea and sat across from Jack and Lyra. "So, what's the plan?" Corvin asked, his voice serious. "We need to gather others," Lyra said. "We can't fight this war with just a few people. There are others who know about the Shattered Ones. We need them to join us." Corvin nodded. "There's a network, people who have been keeping an eye on the Shattered Ones. We'll need to contact them." Jack felt a sense of determination fill him. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, and they didn't know how much time they had before the Shattered Ones made their move. But with each ally they gained, their chances of victory grew stronger. It was time to gather the resistance. The battle for both their worlds was about to begin. The morning light broke through the trees, casting a soft golden glow over the hidden camp. Jack, Lyra, and Corvin stood together, the weight of what they were about to face heavy in the air. Their small team had grown over the past few days, gathering warriors, scholars, and even a few former diplomats who had long since vanished from the public eye. Each person had their own reason for fighting, but they all shared the same goal: to stop the Shattered Ones from bringing darkness to the universe once again. Jack had never imagined his life would take such a turn. A simple man, a house, a life that seemed ordinary. Now he stood on the brink of something much bigger. He was no longer just Jack. He was a leader, whether he felt ready for it or not. "Are we ready?" Lyra's voice cut through his thoughts. She stood beside him, her eyes sharp and focused, like a warrior preparing for battle. Jack looked around the camp. The people they had gathered were all in place. Some were preparing weapons, others checking maps, and a few whispered quietly among themselves. It felt like a team, but not just any team. It was a force of people who had come together because they believed in something larger than themselves. They believed in hope. They believed in the future. "Ready as we can be," Jack replied, his voice steady despite the nerves inside him. Corvin stepped forward, adjusting the strap of his weapon across his chest. "The Shattered Ones will attack soon. They've been gathering strength, and they won't wait much longer. We have to strike first, while we still have the element of surprise." Lyra nodded in agreement. "They've already infiltrated several key worlds. If we don't stop them here, their influence will spread." Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the pressure, the weight of the responsibility. It wasn't just about fighting for himself anymore. It was about fighting for every world, for every person who had no idea what was coming. "We can't afford to fail," Jack said, his voice low but filled with determination. "We fight today for everyone who believes in a future free from fear." Corvin clapped him on the shoulder. "You've got the right mindset. Now let's make sure we see this through." They gathered their forces and set off toward the enemy stronghold. The journey was tense, every step bringing them closer to the battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. Jack didn't know what would happen when they reached the Shattered One's base, but he knew they couldn't back down now. As they approached the enemy's territory, the air seemed to grow colder, darker. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for what was to come. The base loomed ahead, hidden deep in a vast canyon, surrounded by cliffs and jagged rocks. A perfect place for the Shattered Ones to hide, but not perfect enough to stop them. Lyra looked at Jack. "This is it. Once we go in, there's no turning back." Jack took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the group behind them. These were his people now. He had come to care for each of them, and he would fight for them, no matter what. "I'm ready," he said. With a final nod from Lyra, they moved forward, their footsteps echoing in the silence of the canyon. As they neared the entrance to the enemy base, they were met with resistance. The Shattered One's forces, dark and imposing, appeared out of nowhere, their weapons raised and ready to strike. But Jack wasn't afraid. They had come too far, and they had come together. He turned to face his team, his voice rising above the noise. Today, we stand together. We fight for our homes, our families, our future. The Shattered Ones will not take that from us. A cheer erupted from the group. It was more than just a battle cry. It was the sound of hope, of defiance, of a people who refused to be conquered. The battle began in an instant. Blaster fire and the clash of metal filled the air as the two sides collided. Jack fought with everything he had, his movements sharp and focused. He knew this was only the beginning. There would be more battles ahead, more struggles, but for the first time, he felt certain of something. They could win. They had to. Lyra fought beside him, her skills unmatched, her speed and precision making her a force to be reckoned with. Corvin and the others held the line, pushing the Shattered Ones back, never letting them advance. In the heat of the battle, Jack saw the leader of the Shattered Ones, a tall figure cloaked in dark energy, standing atop a platform in the distance. The figure's eyes gleamed with malice, and Jack knew that this was the one he had to face. He pushed through the chaos, his heart pounding as he made his way toward the platform. Lyra was close behind, keeping watch as they advanced. The enemy leader saw them coming, and a cruel smile spread across their face. "You think you can stop us?" The leader sneered, their voice filled with disdain. "This is only the beginning." Jack stood firm, meeting the leader's gaze. "It ends today." With that, he charged forward, his team by his side, ready to put everything on the line for the future. The battle was far from over, but they had already made one thing clear: they would not give up.